2023 to be a year of significant declines in inflation, and it's actually our job to make sure that that's the case. But I would tell you that, with inflation...
welcome to Financial
PCE
Stockholm. Today is
running
Friday,
about 5%.
February
This is
17th,
on a 12-month basis.
2023. I'm Christopher Crystal, and these are our thoughts and views about the market, what we're seeing in the news regarding Scandinavia, Sweden, and Europe. So today, the Swedish government had a press conference talking about the labor market and the requirements to fulfill positions, the level that would be paid, the healthcare costs, and so forth. We're a country with very high taxes. And so there's a number of people here that are trying to work on a cash basis, and they're skirting around the employment laws, both the people who are employing them and the people who are fulfilling the labor. So there was a lot of discussion about that in the press meeting or press conference, and how this has to be fulfilled. And this is what's very interesting here is, if you remember, Ukraine is not yet part of EU. Now, it was pitching and campaigning for the joining of the EU. And if it were part of it, then there would be no problem for Ukrainian citizens working here. As it is right now, they have to apply for work and apply for permits and so forth. So we'll see how this factors into the Swedish economy. But this was something that was discussed at a press conference. We also have our justice minister discussing and talking about the criminality in Sweden and the prison sentences and how to fix things. But really right now, Sweden doesn't really have a fix. Like I said, they are talking about employing the military to help cut down on the crime, but it's not clear yet how that'll work, if they'll only use the military in an intelligence capacity or actual force when arresting people, or it's not really clear. But the one thing that is clear for the military is that it looks like Finland will go into NATO before Sweden. And although if Erdogan is removed because of this recent scandal with the earthquake and the permit, if you look at the Ukrainian story and the war there and Russia, there's a lot of news coming out on both sides. We've seen this week that Norway is going to be spending $1.5 billion per annum, something like 7.3 the next 5 years, to help Ukraine. We had also a speech that a lot are talking about with Jens Stoltenberg discussing the rate of fire, so to speak, with ammunition, and the need for the NATO members to pick up the pace and start manufacturing more ammunition. And this is very clear when you hear that the United States is talking about delivering tanks, 31 tanks. It'll take 2 years before those tanks can be delivered. They're not even manufactured yet, and they're not even yet in manufacture. And the tanks that would be delivered from Europe, the ones that are being delivered are really not in working capacity. That's what's been the news. And any new ones to be developed would have to be built. And then, of course, the HIMARS and the Patriot missile systems, these products are, again, at a 2-year delay. So after you use up the current environment or the current ammunition, then you have roughly a 2-year wait before you can start firing again. This compares with Russia, which has something like 10,000 or 60,000 a day ability in firing of missiles and mortars and munitions, versus NATO currently at 10,000 and then running out. Now you have seen stories talking about the Wagner Group or Wagner Group, which is supposedly in dire straits and in need of ammunition. They've been the ones leading the attacks in places like Bakhmut and Soledar. So we'll see what's happening there. You did have a Russian defense official She fell to her death from her balcony after completing a phone call with her husband. It's not clear if Putin pushed her off the balcony or if somebody or on his orders actually asked her to, go. So there's a lot of different propaganda coming out, and it's very hard to understand which way it's going. Are the Russians running out of ammunition? Are they losing all of their military? Are the Ukrainians in dire situation? Have the bulk of the mercenaries been killed in Ukraine? So, but I think what's more important is that we may be closer to peace talks. Sweden is gradually waking up to the fact that the U.S. was likely behind the sabotage on the Nord Stream 1 and 2. My personal feeling is the U.S. did blow this up. And there is a growing amount of thought in the U.S. that this is the case. Many people are waking up to this. So Sweden's not alone in taking its time. But it's, coupled with the Sy Hersh article on Substack, where he has an anonymous source, but who knows? I mean, anonymous sources are, they're like coupons for the supermarket. They're everywhere. But there were a number of other factors where you could say the U.S. was likely involved, and those would be like CIA warnings, the Boltop 22, the former Polish defense minister's tweet after the explosions happened, the CIA warnings to Germany and other countries. So there is that ability for people to believe that it happened and it was because of the United States. But I think what's most important here is that there's gradually an awakening that the war can end without nuclear results. And should we see an end, a resolution to this, I think the market will, excuse the pun, explode upwards. And that's because you will have, depending on the inflation and logistics, we would see again a sustained growth, and then we would hopefully see a energy crisis resolved, and we would see a resolution of the inflation on the food prices. So Sweden is looking at this, at the story of the pipeline. They're focused more on the war in Ukraine, but hopefully that's soon a moot point. The police in Sweden have also forbid any further burnings of the Koran. And while it's it's a free speech issue, it's also something that socially, to me, I don't understand these people who want to do these things. But there's a lot of things in today's world that I don't understand. But the Swedish police have forbidden it. And on the other side, the hacker groups that have been attacking Sweden are claiming that they're friends to Russia, and it has to do with our burning of the Koran. So we'll see what happens there. Externally, looking at the markets, Sweden is looking at the US and looking at Ford and saying Ford is going to be a big challenger to Tesla. I think this is a rather naive statement. Ford is getting out of the European EV game. They tried to sell the factory that they were building in Germany. They didn't even really complete it. They're trying to sell that to BYD, the Chinese competitor. BYD decided not to go with the factory because they didn't think it was good enough. And then Ford in the US is lagging in electric vehicle sales, but the Swedish press is touting it as the big challenger to Tesla. And so I think this is just really a favoring of Ford stock, probably a paid article. But the point is that Sweden and the Swedish press is looking more at the US market. So the effect on the Swedish market will be somewhat not muted, but we'll get a little bit of participation based on the NASDAQ. The gaming and gambling stocks are in focus. Embracer did relatively well. So, despite their earnings announcements, the performance on the shares was relatively good. And so to be clear, that's what, the idea is that Sweden will be looking at the US market. And in the US, there's a lot of logistical infrastructure issues occurring. So we'll see how this applies to the Swedish market. You've had a number of railroad accidents in a relatively short period of time. You've had a number of food plant accidents, and of course the egg issue everybody's read about. So we'll see how it goes for the US, but as one of the larger economies of the world and direct impact for countries like Sweden, that'll be more the focus for Sweden right now. And I would say that at this point, the Swedish market will continue to focus on that, and we're moving into the weekend, and we'll see what happens. But overall, I wish you a great weekend. Hopefully, you liked and subscribed, and you're talking to your investment advisor for your own strategy and your own portfolio. And we'll wish you a great weekend and talk to you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.